After years and years of building e-commerce websites for other people, I decided that I wanted to develop and bring my own product to market. If I had known what I know now, it would have been a lot easier. If you want to have your own online business, whether you're making the product yourself or selling other people's products, the technology is already there. In this course, we'll cover everything you need to know to have a solid foundation for your e-commerce business. We'll look into different types of business models, choosing the right target audience, validating ideas, and managing cash flow. With a little planning, I'll help make sure you don't just have an e-commerce business, but a business that's profitable, easy to get started, and defensible once it's set up. By the end of this course, you'll be ready to launch your own store so you can share your great idea with the world. Hi, I'm Patrick Rolland. I love helping entrepreneurs build sites that can take their businesses to the next level. Join me in my LinkedIn Learning course as I share the best tips to help you run a successful e-commerce business. Running an online store can be incredibly exciting. You're sending products directly to people who want them so they can enjoy them and make their lives richer. But before you open an e-commerce store, you need to do 3 things. Choose an e-commerce business model, choose who you're going to sell to, and based on your previous choices, choose a specific product to sell. The best place to start is by evaluating different business models. Some of them, like dropshipping, are very easy to get into and require zero startup capital. Others, like manufacturing, require a huge investment of your time and money up front, but give you other advantages down the line. My goal is to help you find the model that works best for you. This could be about maximizing profit, about building a business that can last decades, or about how easy and quickly you want to get started. It's easy to copy what someone else is doing, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to build a business that you want. So by really digging into a few business models, we should be able to find the one that's right for you. In this course, we're going to look at these models: dropshipping, reselling, white labeling, manufacturing, digital products, and making it yourself. As we go through each of these models, we're going to look into some of the advantages and disadvantages. Specifically, how easy it is to get started. Some models take a lot of time or capital to get started, and if you don't have those, you might have to look at transitioning, which is the next point. How you can transition from one model to a new model, and why you might want to do so. Lots of these models are compatible with other models, and there is some overlap, so you can start e-commerce with one business model and you can end somewhere else. Lastly, we're going to talk about how defensible the business is. It takes a lot of time, mental energy, and money to start a business, and some business models are really easy to copy. So if you go down a particular route, you want to know how to defend it so a bigger company doesn't copy what you did and take your market share. I know I looked at a ton of business models before I started selling online, and I'm really glad I did, because I found the one that works for me. Let's look at the different business models and find one that works for you. The first model we're going to look into is dropshipping. Now, dropshipping is invisible to the consumer, so many people aren't familiar with this model. A dropshipper is someone who doesn't actually hold any inventory. They have an online store and they accept orders, but they don't do any fulfillment, which is shipping the products to the customers. Instead, they receive an order and then pass along that information to another company who sends the product directly to the customer. So as a customer, I might buy an umbrella from you for $10. Your store automatically orders that same umbrella from your supplier and sends it to me for $8. You as the dropshipper get to pocket the difference. Oftentimes, you'll see dropshippers for manufacturers who don't want to do any marketing. They just want to make goods, and they'll use dropshippers, resellers, or others to move their product. There are 4 main benefits of dropshipping. The first advantage is a low barrier to entry. You don't need any starting capital. You could start an online store for $30, accept orders, pass along that information to your supplier, who will fulfill those orders. You very likely won't need any outside capital like a loan from the bank to get started. If you're averse to debt, this model is great. And unlike other models, which we'll get to later, you don't have order minimums. Some other models require you to buy a few dozen or 100 or all the way up to 10,000 units at a time. But for dropshipping, you order products as needed. The second advantage is that there's no fulfillment. You'd be surprised how much work it is to organize hundreds or thousands of boxes. Even if you have a giant garage, it's a lot of work to find the right products, pack them up, and send them out. And you also don't have to worry about managing inventory. An inventory count can take days, and with this model, you never have to do that. Next, because you don't manage any physical products, that means you can run your business from anywhere in the world. That is huge. I'm a big fan of being able to work from anywhere, and dropshipping makes that easy. And one of the best parts of dropshipping is that it's scalable. If you get twice as many orders as normal, you don't have to hire extra workers, you just make more money. Eventually, you'll need to hire more customer support representatives, but you're not as impacted by scale as other business models. Dropshipping has a lot going for it, and lots of business owners love this model. But nothing is perfect. Let's dig into a few of the challenges. You may have noticed that low barrier to entry is both an advantage and a disadvantage. There's a reason for this. It's great for you to get your foot in the door, but it's not so great when everyone else can also get in the door. If a dropshipper, or even worse, a community of dropshippers, discovers your profitable niche, they can copy what you did and start selling the exact same product. This will drive your sales and margins down. As an example, if you discover a company selling a product, you could dropship for them and take a cut of each sale. If a bunch of other dropshippers find similar products, or even the exact same product, now you're competing for the same customers and your margins are going to go down. Speaking of margins for dropshipping are smaller than other e-commerce business models. This will of course change from supplier to supplier and industry to industry, but you'll probably see around 20% margins. So if you sell $100 worth of product, you get to keep $20. And that $20 needs to cover all of your business expenses, like customer support, website maintenance, marketing, pay-per-click, and complicated shipping, which is another disadvantage. You might be lucky enough to work with one supplier, in which case this won't affect you too much. But it's likely that you're going to work with a few different suppliers to offer all of the products that your customers want. The downside is you'll have to handle complicated shipping logistics. If you have an order with 4 items and each one comes from a different supplier, that's going to cost 4 times as much as an order from one supplier. Keep in mind, your customers don't know that you're shipping from 4 different suppliers. You then have to decide if you want to pass that cost on to your customer or if you want to subsidize that cost. High shipping prices is one of the biggest reasons customers leave the checkout, so many dropshippers decide to cover some or all of the cost of shipping, which can very quickly turn slim margins into nothing. To mitigate this, you'll want to spend time finding a supplier that can supply as much of your inventory as possible. And if you're really lucky, work with just one supplier, so you don't have to worry about hiding these complex shipping costs. The final disadvantage. Not having to ship products saves you a lot of time, but when the people shipping your product do something wrong, you could get blamed for it, which is a bummer. As a dropshipper, you have to accept that many things are out of your control. With a good supplier, you can expect 1 to 2% of orders to have mistakes and for you to offer a refund or replacement. With a bad supplier, it could be higher than 2%, and you'll have to live with a bad reputation, so pick your supplier carefully. As you can see, there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages for dropshippers. If you find just the right niche, you can run a highly automated business that makes money for you. But you can also get into a niche and then other people follow and copy you, which will drastically affect how much money you can make. Reselling is the archetype of e-commerce and retail. The reseller buys products from wholesalers, distributors, or manufacturers, and they sell them through their own store for more than they bought them for. Functionally speaking, you're going to have your own website where you accept orders and fulfill them yourself. You also have to store the products yourself. The big benefit is you're selling other people's products and you don't need to manufacture them. Let's talk about some of the benefits to reselling. The first benefit is that most of the products that people want to buy already exist. If you're an expert in a niche, then you already know what products are in demand and you don't have to spend a ton of money on research and development to develop new products. You know what works and you can sell it. So if you're already an expert on birds, you know what type of feeders are best, what food is best, and what binoculars are best. You can buy those from suppliers and sell them through your own website. If you're familiar with a niche, you can get a reselling business up and running quickly. With reselling, you're storing products and fulfilling orders. That means you have a lot of control over shipping costs. And since it will likely all come from one warehouse, you can experiment with upsells and cross-sells to get users to add more to their cart, so you can maximize the profit with each order. With reselling, someone purchasing more almost always means you're going to make more money. Speaking of which, larger margins. When you get products at a low cost, usually 20 to 50% of MSRP or manufacturer's suggested retail price, you have some room to play with your margins. You can offer discounts, spend money on pay-per-click advertising, and other tactics to get the sale. When you have slim margins and the margin changes, you can't do much to respond to the change. Larger margins means flexibility, which can save your business when eventually the market does change. A big advantage is being able to experiment with new products. If your store starts growing, you can expand into different areas. Since you aren't inventing new products, you just have to find a supplier who already offers these products and stock them. Oftentimes, you can order a case of products, which might only be 12 to 24 units, so it costs very little to experiment with a new product type. And I highly recommend constant experimentation to see which products and niches are most profitable. Resellers have incredible flexibility when it comes to overhead. You can choose to run a very lean operation and outsource fulfillment, or you can keep it in-house and keep a higher percentage of each sale. If you want to keep overhead low, you can use services like Amazon FBA or other third-party logistics companies to store and ship your products. It'll eat into your margins, but it keeps your business location independent so you can work from anywhere in the world. Or if you want to run your own warehouse and shipping setup, you can do that too. This can lead to higher margins so you can make more with each order, but it will take time and energy to manage. As a brand new reseller, you might be able to start with a small order stored in your garage, which can make it very easy. With reselling, you have the choice to build your own infrastructure and make more money per order, or outsource it and run a lean and efficient machine, focusing more of your time and energy on your products and marketing. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks of reselling. The first is that you don't have any branding. When you sell someone else's products, you run the risk of another store coming along and selling the same products. If you sell Apple computers and another computer store opens down the street, they can sell the exact same product and put pressure on your business. To mitigate this, you need to add value to your products in some way, either with expert staff, a bigger selection in a niche. As an example, a computer store could compete with a big box store that has some computers but doesn't specialize. You can also bundle services with products, such as a computer warranty or free classes with a purchase, or some other way to add value to a product that someone can't easily copy. Another drawback is the capital. To be a reseller, you need to have capital to buy products at a low price with the goal of reselling them at a much higher price. And often, you want to have hundreds if not thousands of SKUs, or different products. Let's say you offer 100 different products, and each one of those products costs you $5 to order, and you need to order at least 12 units of each type. That's going to cost you at a bare minimum $6,000, and this is the best case scenario. Many stores need to order a lot more than this. Expect to spend $10,000 or more just on product to start a reseller business. Since capital is so important with reselling, you need to plan large purchases from suppliers and time those so you have enough cash flow to pay your other bills. You'll need someone on your team who is very good with operations and projections. They need to understand how fast you'll get product in, how much it will cost, and how long it will take to start earning a return on that investment. Reselling is a great way to get into e-commerce and maybe someday create your own products. It is cash intensive and requires someone with good planning and logistics. It also has a lot more margin and flexibility than dropshipping. When you go to a grocery store and you see the name of the store on a can of food, that's called white labeling or private labeling. It's where someone else makes the product and they put your label on the product at the very end. And it's a step between reselling and creating your own product. Private labeling is very similar to reselling, so most of the benefits and drawbacks are the same, but there's a few extra benefits that are worth pointing out. The biggest benefit is being able to do your own marketing and branding. You can create your own name, description, take your own product photography, anything you want to do you can. That means you can choose what you want to focus on. That could be price, quality, or being environmentally friendly. When you private label, you can take advantage of a gap in the market. One of the benefits that comes with building a brand is that you'll build a fan base of loyal customers. If you just resell products, it can be really hard to build loyalty. If you private label great products, people will remember you and you can market to them and get another sale from them down the line. Since you aren't reselling the exact same product as a competitor, your potential customers can't compare prices. I know plenty of consumers who look for a SKU or barcode while shopping in a store and then do a search for the cheapest version of that product online. When you private label, you can make your own SKU or not have one at all. Brands put a lot of money and time into advertising and building a brand. For that reason, they cost a little bit more for you to purchase. If you buy a white labeled product and you aren't paying for brand building, then you get to keep a bigger slice of the revenue. If you know certain products are very popular in your store, I highly recommend private labeled versions of those products so you can keep a higher percentage of those sales. There are some drawbacks to white labeling or private labeling. Again, many of these are the same as reselling since they're so similar, but there are a few extra considerations. There's a benefit to building a brand, and there's the downside to building a brand. One of the harder things about private labeling is it forces you to create your own brand. If you sell sunglasses, you have to convince consumers that your sunglasses are just as good as another brand. If you were to sell a name brand pair of sunglasses, you don't have that problem. Building a brand is hard work, and it can take a long time, but it's usually worth it for the benefits above. Since private labeling includes the manufacturer adding your logo to the product, it is more capital intensive than reselling products. You might have to order a few hundred or thousand units. When you resell products, there's a lot more flexibility to buy products on a shorter notice, and you don't need large quantities. These requirements will vary industry by industry, but typically, white labeling a product requires a bit more capital and time. White labeling gives you many of the same benefits as reselling. In some ways, it's a step between reselling and manufacturing. You can start building a brand and a loyal following. If you have a popular product in your store, I suggest looking into white labeling your own version of that product so you can keep a higher percentage of the sale. Manufacturing is one of the most challenging models because it not only requires a huge capital investment to buy thousands of units, but you also have to spend time and money developing a product from scratch. Having said that, it's one of the most defensible models, meaning it's really hard for someone else to copy you. If you create a hit product, you'll be able to reap the rewards for a long time before someone can even come close to copying or imitating you. Let's talk about some of the benefits of manufacturing your own products. One of the best things about manufacturing is that you can create just about anything. If you have a specific experience in mind, designing your own product and getting it manufactured might be the only way to bring that experience to life. Otherwise, you'll have to live with other people's choices. When you manufacture your own products, you have access to all three types of intellectual property: copyright, trademarks, and patents. And you can use these to protect your business. We'll cover protecting your products and brand later in this course. Even if you don't have a patent, it's still very hard for someone to copy you. If you start selling the newest greatest thing and someone wants to copy you, they'll have to reverse engineer your designs, find manufacturers, get quotes or samples, select a manufacturer, order products, wait for them to arrive, and finally start selling them. This could easily take a year for someone else to copy what you did, and in that time, you could further improve your product and dominate the market. Manufacturing is a long process, which can be a good thing to protect what you've built. It's not all positive, of course, so let's talk about some of the downsides. One of the harder parts of manufacturing is actually making the product. It's not just coming up with the idea, but executing on that idea. You have to figure out how to turn a napkin sketch into a real product. That's hard. Some creators get stuck on this step, even when they have a great idea. You need to have access to the tools and skills to make a prototype. Some industries have professional prototyping services, and some manufacturers will help you prototype new products. Of course, that takes time and money. If you don't have a prototyping service for your industry, hopefully you can find a makerspace where there are 3D printers, laser cutters, hand tools, and a community around design. When you're working with a manufacturer, there's a good chance you'll be working with someone overseas because the costs are drastically lower. But working with overseas partners adds an extra challenge, which is language. And if you're refining your design with a manufacturer or just trying to explain your design, you'll likely run into language barriers. And if they interpret something incorrectly, you could have a completely broken product. One thing you can do to mitigate this is to work with a manufacturer that has native English speakers on staff. I've gotten quotes from multiple factories, and I've had the best communication with a manufacturer that has native English speakers. Even though they might cost a little bit more, it's likely worth that extra cost for the peace of mind when you're investing $10,000 or more on a manufacturing run. As mentioned earlier, when you sell your product, you need to develop a brand. People have to know who you are and they have to believe your product works. Building your reputation takes time, so you can hopefully start building a following before your product comes out, so you can have customers ready to buy the day your product is available. Manufacturing requires a huge amount of capital and time, not to mention the time and skills involved in creating prototypes just to prove that your product works. It's one of the hardest models to get started, but it also gives you access to intellectual property to protect your product. And you have full creative control over the product. You can literally create something that has never existed before. If you can create an amazing product, this is one of the best ways to get into as many hands as possible. There's one type of product that's only been around for a few decades, and that's a digital product. It's worth highlighting here because lots of e-commerce businesses sell digital goods. And just like every other business model, you can include digital products as part of your business strategy. Sometimes it's the entirety of your business model, sometimes it's just one product, and sometimes it's just a starting point. It's worth exploring what types of digital products you could create. There are educational products like courses, books, and videos. There are licenses to use digital assets like software. There are membership sites. These are sometimes about education and skills, but they're also about community, news, or a loyalty program. There's digital templates and tools. There are tons of templates that professionals buy to supplement their favorite software, which could be Photoshop brushes, Excel models, or pre-written contracts. There's music, art, and other creative content. There are a lot of different types of digital products, and they have a number of benefits. Let's talk about some of those benefits. There's a fancy term in economics called the marginal cost, meaning how much does it cost to sell one more unit? With physical products, there's always a marginal cost. With digital products, once they're created, there's a negligible marginal cost. It's almost entirely free to distribute them. This means you could theoretically create something once and sell it 1,000,000 times. Digital products are also easy to protect with various forms of intellectual property. This doesn't mean they're 100% safe, but if you're interested in protecting your brand, it is relatively easy to do so. We'll cover protecting your products and brand later in the course. Business models like dropshipping are great because someone else does the fulfillment for you. Digital products are even better because technology can deliver the product for you and the cost is usually just a couple of cents. This removes one of the main challenges for e-commerce store owners, and it doesn't cost you a thing. This is a huge advantage. As with every other model, there are downsides. One of the problems with digital content is that it's perceived as less desirable than physical goods. Over here, I have a board game called Wingspan that I can buy from the manufacturer for $60. And over here, I have Wingspan the board game for iPad, which only costs $10. It's important to know this is the exact same game, just one of them is physical and one of them is an app. And what we see here, we see all over the internet. There's less perceived value in digital goods, so customers are willing to pay less. So you'll likely need to sell a lot more copies to get the same revenue as you would selling a physical product. I know lots of digital content creators, and unless you have a very strong brand and you have some sort of intellectual property laws backing you up, you're going to have people copy and/or steal from you. If you're creating digital products, be ready for people to copy you. You're putting a ton of effort into a new product, and someone could copy you within 24 hours, swapping out your logo for theirs and reformatting the pages. There are some software solutions to piracy, but they're not always worth the cost. Instead, focus on building an incredible brand so people want to support you. I saw this just a few weeks ago with a tabletop game I play. Someone used a 3D printer to make their own pieces instead of buying official products, and the community asked them to also buy from the company to support them. That's why you should build a brand that people want to support. If you make the right digital product, you can make a killing because your marginal costs are almost zero. Believe me when I say that other e-commerce owners who have to worry about inventory, cost of goods, fulfillment, and overseas shipping will be jealous. Some of the more successful stores use digital goods as an accessory to their main product. This gives them the benefits of high margins on those goods, but makes it harder for a competitor to copy. You might think that in today's day and age that handmade products are out of style, but that couldn't be further from the truth. There are plenty of artisans who still make products by hand and can make a living or at least a profitable side business. Let's talk about some of the benefits. If you have a skill at making things, you can get started right now. Nothing is easier when you have the tools in your own home. You can build a simple website today and take orders tomorrow. This is also a great way to test to see if a market exists for what you're selling. Make a few items by hand and see if they sell. If they do, you can then look into mass production if you want to go that route. If you're thinking about handcrafting products, you probably already have a special skill and the tools to use that skill. So your startup costs are usually very low, and you don't even need a website at this point. You can start getting customers on social media wherever you share your craft. It's generally straightforward to start a handcrafted items business. Handmade products are often a lot more expensive than mass-produced products. This means you need a lot fewer customers. So if you're selling dice, instead of selling 1,000 dice and making $1 for each one, you might only sell 100 dice and get paid $10 each, and you'll make the same amount of money. This reduces a lot of logistics, cash flow, and customer support problems. When you do small batch or one-off products, you typically sell these directly to customers either through your own site or through a marketplace. You can also offer a custom quote, where you get paid to build a specific version of a product for a specific person. This is essentially getting paid to do customer research. Instead of manufacturing 10,000 units and hoping they sell, customers tell you what they want and pay you for the custom work. After doing a few months of doing custom work, you should have an idea of what the market wants and can choose to go into manufacturing if you want. Having a direct connection to the customer is incredibly valuable. The biggest drawback is that handcrafting is very time intensive. Maybe it takes you 8 to 20 hours to make a product. Each hour you spend making products is an hour you can't spend on your business. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but beware that you need to price your product so that you're actually paying for your time. If it takes you 8 hours to draw a custom illustration for someone and you charge $10, you're probably going to go out of business. I recommend coming up with a price point that pays for your time and don't worry about it being too expensive. There's always an upscale market willing to pay for custom products. I'll show you some examples later in this course. Handmade products are especially hard to scale. It's usually a unique skill that you have, so you can't hire people easily, or you'll have to pay them a lot or spend months training them. This makes it tricky around holiday seasons when orders pick up. You might have to work hardest right around that time. If you want to scale your business, you'll have to put effort into writing a process that anyone can follow. Overall, handcrafting is the easiest way to get started with e-commerce if you already have a skill and the equipment. There are a lot fewer logistics to juggle since you have fewer but more expensive orders. You do have to spend a lot of your time creating products, and it is a challenge to scale. If you like this model, give it a go. It's very easy to test, and if you discover a really profitable niche, you can always grow into manufacturing. There's one framework that I find valuable to consider while you explore different business models, and that's thinking about going vertical. Going vertical in business means owning more of the process. As an example, in recent years, Amazon has gone more vertical, not just by reselling Duracell and Energizer batteries. They created their own battery brand called Amazon Basics. They now not only make money from selling batteries, they also make money by manufacturing their own battery. They've become more vertical. Let's start by thinking about how a product gets created and how it arrives at someone's home. We first have to get the raw materials, then we manufacture those in factories, then we ship them overseas, where someone will put them into a warehouse. At some point, someone will order them online on either a website or in a physical brick and mortar store. And then there's fulfillment, which is how it gets from the warehouse to someone's home. Let's say a product sells for $15, including shipping. We can estimate how much value each piece creates. Let's just guess that the raw materials is 30 cents, manufacturing overseas is $3, overseas shipping is 70 cents, warehousing is $1, purchasing at the website and or retail location is $6, and fulfillment is another $4. So we know that there's $15 on the table. How much of the work do we want to do? I know successful e-commerce companies that know about warehousing, and they capture additional value by building their own warehouses, ordering huge orders from overseas, which reduces the per unit cost, and it doesn't cost them that much more because they own their own warehouses. I also know companies that have their own retail locations. Some of them are pop-up stores in the mall. Some of them are booths at festivals, and some of them are multi-year commercial leases. If you know how to sell to customers in person, that's where a huge amount of value is created. Often, retail gets 50% of the value of a product. One way to think about growing your business is thinking about where you can add value. What are you good at that you can do better than other companies? That's where you should spend most of your time and capture that value. I've manufactured products at factories and I'm okay at it, but it's not where I'm best. So it's probably not where I'm going to put most of my time and attention moving forward. But it might be where you are best, and you might want to manufacture your own products. The point of this lesson is to choose a business model that you're best at. Just because someone else had success operating a wholesale store doesn't mean that it would work for you. You may be best with digital products. There's money to be made in e-commerce. You just have to focus on the thing that you do best. Once you choose a business model, you'll want to narrow down what niche or industry you want to serve. A niche is a distinct segment within a market. Some examples of niches are Uncle Goose, who make wooden toys for young children, and all of their toys are made in the US. Colorado Glasses makes eco-friendly wooden sunglasses, and they have the cool Colorado flag on the side. And Button Shy, who make light card games that you can fit in your pocket and bring with you anywhere. The key, when it comes to finding a niche, is keeping it small. In fact, some people encourage you to use the term micro-niche to reinforce just how small you should look. You don't want to offer all sorts of toys, you want to offer wooden toys made in the US. That's a much smaller niche. When you have a small niche, you get a lot of benefits. You probably want to serve a niche that doesn't have a lot of competition. I love escape rooms, but Colorado, where I live, has the highest number of escape rooms per capita in the entire US. My market is saturated, so it'd be really hard to earn a living. When you have a niche that's small and doesn't have a lot of competition, you get some big benefits. First is that you don't have to spend as much money or any money on advertising. If you're a store that sells everything, you have to run big, expensive campaigns that everyone will see. If you're a store that sells environmentally friendly wooden sunglasses for people who love Colorado, you can advertise in the local paper, show up at local events, and use hyper-targeted ads, which are much cheaper. If you offer a product no one's seen before, you might not have to advertise at all. Just let people know it exists, and the message can spread all on its own. Second, you can stand out in your category. If a friend of mine asks, what's a game I can take with me on a road trip, I'd have no problem recommending something from the game company Button Shy. They specialize in games that can be played in small spaces. When you're the go-to solution for a particular problem, it makes you really easy to recommend, and customers don't need as much convincing. It's pretty common for new store owners to want to go as broad as possible. They want to get as many customers as soon as possible, and I get this desire. I want to create a company that offers a product for every single person, so I can have 7 billion customers. But very quickly, it can turn into a mess of products, and I have no idea why I'm in your store instead of on Amazon, which already offers every product, and it's probably nicer than your store. Remember, You want to find a small niche that's not too competitive. If you can properly serve that niche and offer products that are just right for them, you'll have a pretty good chance at running your own e-commerce business. Once you've decided on a business model and you've picked a niche, it's time to think about who exactly you're going to sell your product to. Because who you think is going to buy your product will determine the type of language and branding you use to get people to your site and check out. Let's take a look at an example. Outlery is miniature cutlery that you can bring with you anywhere. When you think about portable cutlery, I can think about three possible groups of people. People who travel a lot for work and want to be prepared for anything, people who camp and need easy to use and easy to pack cutlery, and people who try to avoid plastic cutlery to save the earth. All of these could be valid target customers and could be successful products. But if you take a look at this page, notice how they targeted just one of these. In the pledge levels, they say, "Thank you for being the first to show us and the planet some love." They have images of sea turtles on the campaign page. They use words like eco-friendly, and they talk about the dangers of single-use plastics. And as you can see, this was a very successful campaign, targeting only one type of person. And I'm sure there are other people like campers and seasoned travelers who bought this product, but they are very likely a lot of environmentalists trying to do their part. And this worked on me. I backed this campaign because my sister is an environmentalist and tries to reduce her waste. When I saw this campaign pop up on Kickstarter, I got it immediately as a Christmas gift later that year. And I knew it would be perfect for her since they did such a good job talking about the product from a single persona's perspective, and it matched with her ideals. Honestly, if they had a marketing campaign about camping or traveling, I'm not sure it would have resonated and I might not have purchased it. But because they kept hitting that environmentally friendly angle, I knew it would be perfect for my sister. In the e-commerce world, when we create a hypothetical person who has some attributes, we call that a persona. And personas are powerful because we can label them and refer to them. We can have Alicia the environmentalist, Tim the traveler, and Chris the camper. And when we're creating a product page or a video or email, we can ask ourselves, what would Alicia think? Are we talking enough to Alicia right now? Right now, pause the video just for 1 minute and write down some attributes of your target buyer. Who are you speaking to? In the exercise files, I've provided a document that you can download and fill out. Here's some questions that you can think about. How old are they? How educated are they? How many similar products do they have? What do they read, watch, or listen to? Where do they hang out online? And what are their passions? If you haven't already, go ahead and pause the video and write down some attributes for your target buyer. We do have a number of courses about creating personas in the library if you want to get really detailed with your persona. Once you go through the process, it should be much easier for you to write your product descriptions, your homepage, emails, video scripts, etc. It saves a lot of time and keeps your brand message a lot more consistent, which should help you attract the right people to your store. Remember, personas don't prevent you from selling to everyone. The goal is to focus on one persona so they can't resist your product. That's generally a better position than trying to sell everything to everyone. While you're creating personas, you need to think about that persona's desires and obstacles to those desires. We call those obstacles pain points. Let's go back to our Outlery example. Remember, they're targeting environmentalists, which is a great persona to think about. Their main pain point is trying to avoid single-use plastic cutlery. But let's dig a bit deeper into what exactly that means. Someone may have cutlery, but they forget it at home. They might have portable cutlery, but they don't have a good container to keep them together and away from clean items. People might worry about their knives being thrown out by TSA or some other sort of security. And they might just have hard-to-wash cutlery. I came up with this list in just 5 minutes. If you really understand a target market, you should be able to list a ton of potential pain points. Now that you have some pain points, you can try to solve some of them with your products and/or services. Let's turn some of these pain points into positive solutions that we could include on our site. So for the first example where they forget their cutlery at home, we could say, never forget your cutlery at home. Keep it in your purse or bag at all times. If someone already has some sort of travel cutlery, but they don't have a good container to keep it all together, we could say, a recycled tin case keeps your cutlery clean and separated from other items in your bag. And if someone's worried about knives being thrown out by TSA, we could say, our TSA safe knives means you never have to think about whether or not you can bring your cutlery with you. And for the last pain point where they have hard to wash cutlery, our stainless steel cutlery can easily be washed in a dishwasher. It's okay not to solve every pain point. That's something you can work on in the future. If you spend the time to come up with 20 pain points right now and you can only solve 5 or 10 of them, that is great. Keep the list somewhere and keep working on it. Now, pain points aren't always about the product itself. For example, a pain point might be, I know my relative wants this eco-friendly cutlery, but I'm not sure what model they want. And a solution for that is to allow gift certificates. There are similar pain points with returns or shipping speed. There are also sometimes pain points with selection. I don't want to decide between 1,000 products that could be good for beginners. A potential solution to that is to offer a beginner's kit. If you're just starting to research your target market, I recommend joining groups on social media, reading forums, and generally hanging out where your audience hangs out. You'll very quickly learn what they like and dislike, and you can weave all of that into your product and your company. There's a temptation to come up with the perfect business model, find the perfect audience, find the perfect product, and create the perfect website. While I understand all of this, it actually gets in the way of creating a successful business. The first problem is that humans aren't actually original with our first ideas. Our first ideas when we try to solve a problem are the same as everybody else's ideas. But if you keep pushing past and encourage yourself to come up with 35 ideas, the last 15 ideas are more original than the first 20. There's additional research that shows that you don't actually max out on originality until idea 200. So if you really wanted, you could spend a few weeks coming up with 200 plans so you have all of your best ideas on the table. I'm not saying you have to create 200 ideas. In fact, that's probably going to take too much time. But do try to come up with at least 25 ideas. If you're trying to come up with a new product, new business model, or serve an underserved audience, you may want to be original and have a clear perspective so that you can succeed. Once you have a bunch of different ideas, how do you select the right idea? That's the next challenge. There's evidence that creators often rank their own ideas as more important and impactful than they really are. We fall in love with our ideas, and we have no clue which of our ideas are the best. This same study shows that managers and investors are risk averse, and they discourage you from original ideas which could have been great. The best way to figure out which of your ideas are the most likely to succeed is to ask other creators. So ask someone else who has made a product or runs a store or manufactures overseas. These people have the viewpoint you need to help you pick the right idea for your business. Just to highlight this with a personal example, I made a light card game and I had moderate success for a first project. But I have over 100 ideas logged, most of which will never be turned into a product. I archive everything, and when an idea really calls to me, then I prototype it and show it to other creators. I definitely recommend that you do the same with your business ideas to see if the ideas will hold on their own and will sustain your business. It's common to see first-time creators be protective of their ideas. They don't want you to share pictures of their prototype on social media, and when they test their product with customers, they make them sign NDAs. And in some industries, this is the norm. But in other industries, this is the exact opposite of what you should do. Really, this varies wildly. The first thing you should do is some research into your industry. As an example, in the hobby board game market, everyone shares everything they're working on, the concept, prototypes, pictures, and feedback, sometimes for years before the product comes out. In the mass market for toys and games, nobody shares their ideas. They're all top secret. A lot of this comes down to how difficult it is to execute. If something is hard to do, then ideas are more free-flowing. But if things are easy to execute, such as a plastic toy that any manufacturer could make, then you want to keep your ideas closer to the chest, ideally until they're on store shelves. So if you're making something that's very simple to manufacture, you might want to be more selective with who you share that idea. But if it's a hard product to design, then it rarely matters if someone sees your idea. They don't have the time or resources to copy you. They're already busy working on their own projects. Besides being careful who you share your idea with and maybe using NDAs, there are three main ways to protect your ideas: trademarks, copyright, and patents. Trademarks protect brands. So if you see someone set up their own online store with your name and sell fake products with your name, then you can file a trademark claim. I rarely recommend you get an official trademark until after you have a successful product, since they cost quite a bit to acquire around the world. Copyright protects creative works. If you write a book, take a photo, compose a song, release a movie, or illustrate a drawing, your work is automatically copyrighted. There are ways to officially register your copyright if you want to have documentation, but you technically don't have to do such things. The last type of legal protection are patents. Patents exist to protect new inventions or new ways of doing things for a certain length of time. There are different types of patents, but generally speaking, a patent will last up to 20 years. If you're inventing a new product, this is where you can really protect yourself. Enchroma, which we talked about earlier, has a patent. The founder accidentally discovered a certain type of glass that lets colorblind people see orange. They then found investors and spent 9 years researching different types of glass to create the Enchroma glasses. Since inventions like this usually take years to perfect, the US government grants you a temporary monopoly for up to 20 years to make your investment back. Another company to take advantage of patents are Hickeys. They're basically elastic shoelaces that are always laced and let you slip into and out of any shoe. They also have a patent that gives them limited monopoly to make up all of that time up front inventing the product. Not all products have a patent. In fact, many of them aren't actually eligible to get a patent. You have to show that the invention is different enough from existing products, and that it provides value to society. So if you're just tweaking the shape of a handle on a coffee cup, you probably can't get a patent. But if you really are coming up with something unique, and someone else doesn't already hold the patent, you could get it. Most e-commerce businesses don't need these protections. You can have a very viable business without any of these intellectual property protections. But if you do think you're eligible and you can invest the money, they can be useful to help you protect your business. The one warning I'll give learners who are seeking some sort of intellectual property protection is that you should make sure your business moves forward while you go through the process. A friend of mine made an incredible invention and he spent over 3 years trying to get a patent, but hasn't earned a single cent. He probably could have built his business faster by filing for a provisional patent, selling the product to earn revenue, and then start saving up for a full patent application. So don't let intellectual property sideline your business. All the work we've done up until now doesn't matter if people don't want to buy your product. If you have resources to spare, you can keep things secret, manufacture the product, and hope it sells. But most people and companies don't work that way. Typically, you will need to validate and then refine your product idea. A good example of this is the SwitchPod. It's a product designed specifically for video bloggers. The creators knew video bloggers had a problem recording themselves. There were some solutions, but the existing solutions would sometimes fail and the cameras would fall over. Not good when video recording equipment costs thousands of dollars. So they had a small audience who had a specific problem. They started by making a cardboard cutout. They used this to get an idea of how big their product should be, and then they started to get feedback from close friends. Then they started 3D printing different types of plastics and showed off the prototype at video blogging events. They asked people, would you buy this? How much would you be willing to pay? How does it feel? And would you prefer any colors or textures? And they learned a few things. Some people wanted different colors, but how many customers would they lose if it only came in black? In the end, they decided to only make the black model since it would increase production costs quite a bit to offer multiple colors. They also learned that some people do want video stands that can wrap around objects, but most people want to hold their camera or place it down. They'd have to come up with an entirely new product to solve this third need, and not everyone needs it. And there's already a ton of competition that makes those flexible camera stands. What we're really talking about here is product development. We're iterating on our idea to make sure that people are willing to buy it, how much they'd pay, and only including the features that will make the product sell. When you're doing product development or validation, you have to get outside your bubble. you need to ask people outside of your friends and family. They might be good for that first very rough prototype, but beyond that, you have to get validation from people who don't know you, because those people won't say something just to spare hurt feelings. There's three types of validation, and they all have very different values. The first is monetary. Is someone willing to pre-order your product? That's the best type of validation. Kickstarter is a type of pre-order where people are willing to buy your product months or years before they'll hold it in their hands. The second is an email or contact information saying they'd be willing to buy it when it's available. If you've never built a product before, you might assume that 80 to 90% of people on a newsletter will buy your product, but it's much closer to 2 to 5%. This depends a lot on where and how you collect email addresses. If you go to local events and people see you in person, it could be as high as 20%. But as soon as you're reaching out to people online that you've never met before, that percentage quickly drops. That means if you need to get 100 pre-orders, you might need 2,000 emails. The third is a verbal commitment. This is very low value unless you personally know them. If they aren't willing to give you some sort of way to alert them where and when to buy the product, they probably aren't going to buy. So let's say you're thinking about launching a store and you can only get 20 people to pre-order your product. That's probably a sign the product isn't quite ready, or you're targeting the wrong audience. In the product development lifecycle, this is actually a great result. Learning this far ahead of the time that your product might not work is a gift. You can keep iterating on the product to find the essential features, the right price point, the right audience, and the right messaging, and then try again. It's better to vet 3 product ideas and only move forward with one than to half-heartedly vet a substandard product, invest thousands of dollars, and take years to earn that money back. Rarely do new store owners think about how profitable each product will be after including all of the costs. If you do, even an hour or two of research, you'll be far ahead of the competition. The best way to explain profitability is to run through a few scenarios. Let's say you want to sell this model car for $10, and you can manufacture 1,000 model cars for $2,500. With this information, we can determine that each car costs $2.50. This is called the cost of goods, and it's basically how much each item costs to manufacture. You'll want to figure out your cost of goods, or COGS, since it's a helpful number to determine how profitable sales are, and you can use it when you're generating reports. If we sell all 1,000 units, that means we earn $10,000. And if we subtract our cost of goods, we should earn $7,500 in profit. Those sound like pretty good numbers, assuming we can sell through our inventory quickly. However, there's still a lot we haven't taken into account. The first are any taxes, fees, or fulfillment costs to get to our location. In e-commerce, we call this the landed cost. Let's say shipping all 1,000 widgets costs $1,000. And there are some taxes or tariffs on the goods you produce for another $500. The landed cost is the manufacturing cost with all of these extra fees. In our case, that's $2,500 for manufacturing, $1,000 for fulfillment, $500 for fees, for a total of $4,000. So those fees didn't sound like much, but they almost halved our profit. Let's also say you have to store these widgets in a storage unit or warehouse for $500 a year. Now each widget makes us $5.50. E-commerce is one of those industries where a dollar saved really is a dollar earned, meaning everything you can do to reduce your costs will have a huge impact on your profitability. There are a couple of areas that you should look into to save a bit of money. The first is the quantity you order. As you order more units, the price will go down. So maybe this business doesn't make a lot of sense if you order 1,000 units at a time. Maybe you have to order 10,000 units to have your costs go way down. As a bonus, shipping costs across the ocean aren't that affected by quantity, meaning going from 1,000 to 2,000 units likely won't double your shipping costs. You should see some savings here. You should, of course, compare and negotiate quotes from manufacturers. Oftentimes, you'll be able to find one feature that adds a ton of cost to your product. Maybe it's the UV coating on the box. Maybe it's switching from custom components to standard components. There are often little tweaks that can greatly reduce your costs, so be on the lookout for those. Hopefully, you have a manufacturing partner who will suggest cost-cutting measures to you. Something often overlooked is increasing your price. Just because there's a similar product that sells for $10 doesn't mean your product has to cost $10. Maybe it's different enough or higher quality, and customers are willing to pay an extra $5 for your product. Let's redo all of our numbers with a higher quantity. We tweaked one part of the model car to save a few cents per item, and we increased our price from $10 to $15. And to be fair, we'll increase the length of our products that they're in storage, since it might take longer to sell them at this price point. Now we have 3,000 units costs $5,000, $1,500 for fulfillment, $1,000 in fees, $2,000 for storage costs for a total of $9,500. Our total revenue is $45,000, and our profit is $35,500. It does take us 3 years to sell through this inventory, so you're going to want to release another product or have a side job while this picks up. But each widget makes us $11.83 profit. That is a massive improvement. Again, most owners only spend 10 minutes on this. If you can spend a few hours tinkering with these numbers, you should prevent a whole lot of mistakes and become a lot more profitable. One of the secrets of business is that when you find something that works is to keep doing it. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that keep trying to sell products that don't sell, and I see other entrepreneurs who keep trying to invent new products when their original product is selling like hotcakes and they can't even keep it in stock. As an e-commerce entrepreneur, you have to know when and how to grow, as well as when and how to strategically shrink your catalog. One of my favorite computer accessories is the Roost stand. It props up your laptop so the angle is better for your posture. This entrepreneur realized he found a great idea, so he bought specialty equipment so he can produce them in-house, and then he started refining the design, eventually making a V2, and a few years later a V3, which he still sells today. He also expanded to sell related products. He sells a sleeve for the stand and an easy-to-travel mouse and keyboard in a bundle. He also started selling custom Roost stands with logos for companies that want to send them to their employees as swag. All of these are good examples of someone expanding their product line around the product that's succeeding. Once you start selling products, make sure that you're collecting data on what is and what is not working. For most e-commerce business models, cash is a really tight resource, and you need it to order the products that you know will sell. Having your cash tied up in products that sit in a warehouse is inefficient. And especially if you're tight on space, there's nothing wrong putting products on clearance to get them out of your warehouse or storefront to make room for products that do sell. It's good for your customers who are browsing your online or brick and mortar store, and it's good for your business. Remember, you want to stay focused on your niche and only sell products that your audience loves. Now that we know what your business model is, who you're selling to, what you're selling, and you have some idea that the business is going to be profitable, it's time to start setting it up in a technical sense. If you haven't already, you'll likely want to set up some sort of legal entity for your business. There are two main benefits of setting up a legal entity. The first is building a wall between your business and your personal life. If you have no legal entity, you're known as a sole proprietor in the US. And as a sole proprietor, you are legally responsible for the debts and losses in your business. And for e-commerce specifically, if you sell a defective product or make a mistake, you will be personally liable. That means if you sell a product and someone sues you, they could win any of your assets, including your house, car, or retirement savings. If you set up a legal entity, debts will be limited to the company instead of you personally. And as much as you love your business, you don't want it invading your personal life. The second benefit of setting up this wall is it makes it easier to set up a separate bank account and track expenses. When you run a business, especially an e-commerce business, there are a lot of tax write-offs, including advertising, hiring contractors, creating prototypes, and manufacturing products. Having a separate business account makes it easy to do the bookkeeping to maximize those tax write-offs and reduce the amount you owe. In the US, it's common to set up a limited liability corporation, or an LLC. These are pretty easy to maintain and provide the benefits of a separate legal entity. To set up an LLC, you want to file the paperwork with your state's Secretary of State. There's often a small filing fee, and in many states, you can do this online. We're not going to cover all of the steps in this process because it varies greatly state to state and country to country. You can watch some of our other courses in the library to learn more. The vast majority of products that you might sell are taxable. That means you need to collect and remit sales tax for these products. But before you can do that, you need to get a sales tax license. To get a sales tax license, you can read through your state's or country's website, or if you're in the US, you can read through a resource like TaxJar that has all the information on one page. Resources like these are great, especially for new e-commerce store owners. They provide comprehensive knowledge about a state's tax system. Depending on your state's rules and how much revenue you generate will determine how often you have to pay sales tax. As you get started, it'll likely be yearly, and then as your business becomes more successful, it'll change to quarterly and then monthly. One thing we do need to discuss is Nexus. Nexus is what we use in the US to determine where you owe taxes. If you have Nexus, or a business presence, you need to collect and pay sales tax. Generally speaking, Nexus is determined by an office, retail, or warehouse location, or sometimes by a full-time employee residing in the state. So even if you only have a warehouse in a state, you still have Nexus, which means you have to get a sales tax license and collect and remit those taxes. If this all sounds complicated, that's because it is. And a recent US Supreme Court case will make it even more complicated. If you sell over $100,000 in any state, they can require you to collect and remit sales tax even if you don't have a physical presence. This emerging concept is called economic nexus, and it's still rolling out across the US. So you need to know what Nexus is, and you now need to be aware that if you make enough money, you'll likely have to pay state sales tax in other states as well. If this is just all too much to deal with, there's a lot of really good software to help you collect and remit taxes. In addition to sales tax for both online and in-person transactions, you might also have to consider permits for operating a physical retail location, if that's in your business model. You have to know your occupation limit, you might have to get a permit to put a sign out front of your location, and you have to know what your location is zoned for. As an example, I live a few blocks from a historic district. If I opened a retail business down the block, I wouldn't be able to make any changes to the outside of my building without getting approval from the city. Once you have all of your permits and sales tax licenses ready to go, you're just about ready to create your own e-commerce site. You filed the paperwork and done all the research on what type of products you're going to sell and how you're going to sell them. The last thing you need to do before creating the website is to come up with a brand. On a fundamental level, we have brands to make it easier for consumers to identify a particular product and to make one product distinct from another in the marketplace. If someone asks me if I want a coffee, I'm not sure how I should respond because there's lots of different types of coffee, and they might be offering coffee that doesn't match up with my preferences. If someone asks me if I want a Starbucks coffee, now I have more information and can give them a yes or no answer. We also use brands as shorthand. If Apple comes out with a new device, I might already trust that device because I'm familiar with Apple and those devices have worked pretty well for me. So brands are there to help consumers make decisions on which product to buy. A brand is made up of a ton of elements. There's the name, which is shared on documents, the logo, which is usually on the product itself, a tagline for the website, and there might even be a mascot, which appears in videos and in other places. And then there's, of course, the way your brand behaves. Some brands want you to buy all the things and they send discount emails often. Other brands, like REI, want you to get outside and they purposefully shut down on Black Friday to encourage you to get outside. We're not going to